Professional and Ethical Behavior of the Paraprofessional, Module 2. As a paraprofessional, you have ethical responsibilities to children, to families, to colleagues, and to the community and society as whole. We believe in a particular way because we have certain beliefs, and integrity requires us to act according to these beliefs. Confidentiality. Any personally identifiable information, data, and educational records kept by the teacher or the school, or you, the paraprofessional, cannot be shared with others who do not have a right to the information. Types of records. They may include personal information about a student's academic skills and progress, a student's goals or their IEP goals, social skills information and behavioral plans, information about other professionals, for example, the supervising teacher, administration, or other paras in the building. The source of the information is not important. The important question is whether you should share the information and who you should share it with. A good rule of thumb when it comes to confidentiality of information: do not share student information with anyone except your supervisor. In the case of information about other adults, always seek permission before passing on personal or professional details. Confidentiality. Never refer to other students by name in another staffing or conference or with other parents. Don't share specific information about an individual's program or unique needs in the lounge or out in the community. And maintain confidentiality about all personal information and educational records concerning children, youth, and their families. Establish some ground rules with your supervisor if you're in daily contact with parents, so you know clearly what communication is appropriate and what isn't. Ask for clear boundaries or guidelines. It may be efficient for you to deliver written contact to parents, but make sure the parents understand that you're only delivering information on behalf of your teacher or your supervisor. Make sure that the student and his or her family knows that you are not to be placed in the middle of situations between home and school or the organization that you're working for. Access individual records for the sole purpose of being more effective in your work with the individual. Go through the proper channels to access confidential information. And make sure you're authorized to access any confidential information that you read. If you question policies and procedures used with an individual, discuss this privately with your supervisor. Remember that the teacher or supervisor is the person responsible for setting up instruction and planning for the individual. If the parent has concerns or questions, tell them that you will give the information to the proper person or ask them to make that contact directly. Never put yourself in a position where you're making decisions with parents that you don't have the authority to make. This is often confidential information that directs specific programming of which you may not be aware. Follow district policies for protecting the health, safety, and well-being of children and youth. Take questions you have about the organization's policies on confidentiality to the building supervisor or to the principal. Parents' questions about their children should be directed to the teacher. If a student has a question about school policy, direct the student to bring their personnel concerns or inquiries through the school's designated channels. You should never answer questions about policy to a student or to a parent. Demonstrate respect for individual differences, dependability, integrity, and other standards of ethical conduct. Respect the legal and human rights of children, youth, and their families at all times. We are going to review some practice scenarios on confidentiality. Please review each scenario and then pause the training video. Discuss your thoughts on the scenario with a peer, or if you are by yourself, reflect on what happened in the scenario before advancing the video. After discussing your ideas, please start the video to hear the correct solution. You are at a supermarket, and you bump into the mother of one of the children in your classroom. She says, "So how's my boy doing?" What do you say to her? Pause the training and either discuss with a peer or reflect on your response. How do you respond? Even though that is the mother of one of your students and parents are entitled to know about their child's progress, you are not the most appropriate source of that information for the parent. Also, the market, a public place where you can easily be overheard, is not the proper setting for sharing information. An appropriate response to this type of question would be to refer the parent to the teacher, stating in a courteous and friendly manner that you have been specifically told to not share information about students because that is not your role, and especially not to talk about students in public. Next scenario. One of the other paraprofessionals in your junior high approaches you while you're both on lunch, supervision duty, and asks about one of the students you both work with. He works with the student as a job coach, and you provide individual support to the student in math. He is a bit concerned about the student's understanding of money and wants to know whether there is anything on the student's IEP about math and what you are doing with the student in the area of math. What do you say to him? Pause the training video and reflect on your response. Even though the conversation concerns a student you both work with and is on a topic relevant to both of your responsibilities, you should not share information freely with another paraprofessional unless you have checked with your supervisor whether it is appropriate. Even if you have been given permission to discuss a particular student's needs or goals, because you both serve those needs, the lunchroom is not an appropriate setting for exchanging information. Despite the difficulty in finding time to get together with another paraprofessional, that is what you should suggest rather than sharing information in such a public place. Practice scenario. At a Saturday soccer game, you get into a conversation with your sister-in-law about the soccer skills of girls on the team. This leads to, "Look at that Danielle. She's a fabulous little soccer player, but I understand she is not so fabulous in the classroom. She needs to learn how to behave in the classroom. What happened last Friday? My girl came home with some story about chairs being thrown. I wanted to talk to you before I go up to school and confront the principal about the other kids being in danger." What do you say to her? Pause the training video to reflect on this scenario. Even if you were present at the incident your sister-in-law described, you are not the appropriate source of information on the real version of anything that happens in the classroom, unless you are asked by a teacher or administrator to provide that sort of information. Again, you should politely decline to comment and refer your sister-in-law to the teacher for information. The teacher is also the most appropriate person for your sister-in-law to consult about her concerns, rather than taking them to the principal first. Your supervisor wants to contact the parent of a student who used to attend the school to ask if he will come and talk to her careers class students about his work as a lawyer. Knowing that you live locally, she asks, "I want to get hold of Ken Grover to see if he'll come and talk to my 9th grade class, but his number doesn't seem to be in the directory. He's a friend of yours, isn't he? Do you have his number?" What do you say to your supervising teacher? Pause the training and discuss your response with a peer or reflect on the scenario before proceeding with the video. Confidentiality of information must be observed in both directions. You should not share information about a student with members of the community, nor should you share information about community members at school. Although you can be the source of much useful background information for a teacher who is not local, only share information if it is truly necessary and you will benefit the student's education. In this case, you could offer to pass on a message to Mr. Grover and ask him to phone the school with a response rather than providing his phone number. Confidentiality. It is one of the most critical and important aspects of your job as a paraprofessional. It's your legal responsibility to observe the data privacy rights of individuals with disabilities and their parents. An important aspect of ethical behavior for paraprofessionals is the handling and disclosure of confidential information. During the normal course of daily activities, you may come into contact with a wide variety of information about students. Information may include test scores, behavior, attendance, family problems, and many other kinds of personal information. School personnel, including paraprofessionals, are required by law to keep this information confidential. Confidentiality is an important ethical and legal issue in providing services to students. Both state and federal laws regulate access to information about students with disabilities. Maintaining confidentiality is absolutely essential to the role of the paraprofessional, and a lapse in confidentiality is very serious. If confidentiality is breached, serious disciplinary consequences can follow. The consequences can range from a verbal reminder, a written disciplinary record in your personnel file, termination from employment, and in the most extreme situation, a formal complaint with local or state agencies.